The display resolved, and Gorveth's trail went dark. Every coordinate on the screen belonged to his fleet, updated in real time. Course headings, reactor signatures, crew counts per vessel. All of it had been hiding inside a signal his comm officer had been logging as background noise for 11 hours. Across the command platform, the Alvari liaison's silver skin had gone the color of old ash. Nobody moved. If stories about what's hiding in deep space keep you up at night, join us. You'll want to hear how this started. The corridor's sensor logs had still shown clean when Gorveth's fleet first entered it, 14 hours before. 62 warships pushing through a stretch of space that every chart in the Slime Accord marked as empty. Gorveth remembered how easy it had felt. His bioluminescent trail had glowed a steady, confident gold as he crossed the command platform, the familiar wet streak spreading behind him along the deck plating. His junior officers knew to walk around it. The Alvari contingent, 6 officers in sharp silver uniforms, stood grouped near the environmental console, their elegant faces tight with discomfort. The humidity that kept Gorveth's skin healthy left condensation running down their necks. The whole deployment was political theater. 2 species, 1 corridor sweep, a show of cooperation through a region nobody believed held anything worth the effort. His comm officer, a young Relvani named Peleth, picked up the prime number signal within the first hour. It was the kind of thing every deep space crew encountered sooner or later. A mathematical sequence, broadcasting on a common frequency, predictable enough to ignore. Every species in the sector had logged signals like it before. Every species dismissed them. That was the point. Peleth filed it and moved on. By hour 4, the Alvari liaison, a sharp-jawed officer named Tessara, reported sensor ghosts. Small returns flickering at the outer edge of detection. Too small to be ships, too regular to be natural debris. Gorveth's trail shifted from gold to a cautious amber as he pulled her data onto his own display. 47 contacts, then 60. Then the count kept climbing with no sign of leveling off, and the comfort he had carried into this corridor quietly died. He ordered a deep scan. What came back arrived in stages. The ghosts were real, physical objects, small, identical, arranged across the corridor in a grid so mathematically precise that no asteroid field or debris pattern could account for it. Satellites, hundreds of them. And as the scan pushed deeper, every new layer of space it reached held more. Gorveth watched the tally pass 400, then 5, then 6. Tessara asked in a voice stripped of everything but professional control, what species had built them? Peleth ran the signal architecture a second time before he answered, human. Beneath the tactical overlay, the satellite grid snapped into full resolution, not weapons, sensors. Every single unit oriented inward, quietly collecting data on anything that passed through the corridor. They ran on micro-reactors no larger than a Relvani's eye, and every one of those reactors was a neutrino detector. Neutrinos, the particles that pass through every known shielding material in the Alliance catalog, every hull plating, every classified composite, every defensive layer ever engineered by any species in the sector. Human sensors did not need to break through defenses. They made defenses irrelevant. Every reactor powering every ship in Gorveth's fleet had been announcing its exact location simply by being turned on. His fleet was exposed. It had been exposed from the moment it entered the corridor. If you think the satellites are the worst of it, wait. Tomorrow's story might change what worst means to you. Gorveth's command mark, the bioluminescent patch behind his left sensory ridge that signaled his rank to every Relvani in visual range, had started to dim. He noticed the way a person notices a clock that stopped. Not the silence itself, but the absence of something that should have been there. That mark had burned to clean gold for 30 years. Now it flickered, heavier, pulling toward the dark amber that his species associated with doubt. The tissue around it felt dense and swollen, as though 3 decades of authority had pooled into that single patch of skin and found it was not enough. Tessara pulled the satellite count onto the main display. 1,04012. Before she could speak, the number updated. 1,04019. She asked how many there were in total. The system was still counting. 2,000, then 3. By hour 9, the corridor Gorveth had been ordered to sweep, the corridor every Allied chart called strategically worthless, had turned out to be the most densely monitored stretch of space in the sector. Every angle covered, every frequency watched. Nothing had passed through here in years without being recorded. How long had the satellites been here? Peleth's console chimed. A second signal, separate from the prime number broadcast, had triggered the moment the satellite count crossed some invisible threshold. Automated, no voice behind it, just text, rendered in standard galactic trade script, as though the system had been sitting there for years waiting for someone to finally pay attention. There are human ships in your home system. They've been there since before you launched. Gorveth read it twice. His trail, already dark amber, went fully black for the first time in his adult life. The salt and organic smell of his own stress secretion flooded the air so thickly that Tessara took a step back without realizing she had moved. But it was Peleth who changed everything. The young comm officer had gone back to the prime number signal, the original one, the one from hour 1 that every species in the sector dismissed on contact. Something in it was wrong. Not the sequence itself. Inside it, every 100th number was off, and not randomly, deliberately. Peleth started mapping the errors, running each wrong digit against standard positional encryption keys. The pattern resolved in seconds. And there it was, the same display, the same coordinates that had killed the gold in Gorveth's trail. Every wrong number corresponded to a location. His ships, all 62, plotted with a precision that tracked drift, speed changes, and reactor output down to the current minute. The humans had not stumbled onto his fleet. They had been watching it from inside the one signal no species in the galaxy bothered to examine, counting his ships with a code folded into a code, hidden in mathematical noise so predictable that questioning it had never occurred to anyone. That was the design, not secrecy through complexity. Secrecy through boredom. Gorveth stood on the command platform, his massive body locked still. The dried edges of his skin cracked faintly where his secretion had stopped. Around him the bridge held its breath. Tessara's silver skin had tarnished to a flat, dull gray. Peleth's data stylus hung frozen above his console. The corridor had never been empty. It had never been unimportant. It was a lens, and Gorveth's fleet had drifted straight into its focus, announced by the hum of their own reactors, catalogued by the signal they had filed as routine, observed from the first moment they crossed the boundary by a species that had turned patience and mathematics into something no weapon in the Alliance could match. No one had fired a shot. No one had needed to. Gorveth's trail left no mark as he crossed to the command log. The deck beneath him was dry. He opened the fleet assessment file and found the status field that had read "Com Ritter clear" for every sweep of his career. He deleted the words and entered a single revised classification. Across the bridge, steady and faint, the prime number signal pulsed on through the speakers. The same sequence, the same frequency, still counting. What would you do if the signal you'd ignored your whole career turned out to be counting your ships? If you want to find out what the count leads to, subscribe. The numbers aren't finished.